Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. You guys call me Z.
I'm Lila.
And for our lecture, we're going to be discussing planning and settings for instruction. So one of the first things you want to take into consideration is you want to plan an appropriate learning environment. You want your setting to be age and learning level appropriate. You don't want to take a group of adults to a children's museum, and you don't want to take a group of small children to like a really complex, high-tech laboratory. And wherever you go, you want to stress the importance of behavior. That's for children and adults alike. And there are a lot of places that are good for students and trips of any age or students of any age. And you can just alter your handouts or activities for different age groups. So like if you go to a zoo and you want to do a scavenger hunt, you can have the children collect, like a lot of zoos will have little stamp things where they can collect the paw prints on ink for the different animals. So you can have the children do something like that. Or if you have a group of adults, you can maybe have them find different animals based on families or orders or different behavior. So you can really take a lot of different settings and adjust them to whatever group you have with you. Integrative learning. You want your students to make connections that transcend disciplines. It's been shown to support students' engagement and learning, and you want them to use the information and skills that they learn to address other challenges. So like going back to the zoo, if you have a group of little kids and you want them to pick their favorite animal, instead of having them just write it down, maybe you can have them draw a picture and get creative with it. Or if you have a group of adults, maybe challenge them to think of different ways that they might improve on the exhibits or change the layout of things. Or if you take them to like a engineering-based museum, you can have them brainstorm ways to incorporate this knowledge into some sort of environmental project like rainwater harvesting or using solar energy. And wherever you go, you want to challenge your students to think critically. Why are we learning this? And you also want to ask them, how does this affect us as individuals? How does it affect us as a community? And how does it affect us as a planet?
Okay, developing a successful environmental education program. So in order to do this successfully, we want to follow the guidelines for excellence for the age groups K through 12 grade levels. The overall goal of the guidelines of excellence is to promote progress towards sustaining a healthy environment and a healthy quality of life. So they do break this up into 4 categories. The first being questioning, analysis, and interpretation skills. Um, so with this, while lesson planning, basically it's important for the instructor or teacher to promote question asking, which Kristen was also saying is important, speculating, hypothesizing, and we want to seek information in order to answer the questions that are being asked. Students will design experiments, collect information, organize data, create models, and draw their own conclusions. The second point to this process is environmental processes and systems. So this is ensuring students have an understanding of systems and processes that make up the environment, including human social systems. Lesson plans will include topics like the hydrosphere, atmosphere, geosphere, etc. The goal here is to understand how human activities have long-term effects on our environments. And then this is broken up, this subcategory, into 3 different parts. So Earth's physical and living systems, human systems, which examples would be political and economic systems, and then environment and society. So that would include human environment interactions, resource distribution, and different locations. Our third bullet point, skills for understanding and addressing. So this involves students who can further investigate an environmental issue. Determine an action plan, research the issue from different perspectives, long-term implications for sustainability, and so on. And then this is split up into two different categories as well. So the first being the skills for analyzing and investigating environmental issues, and the second being decision-making and action skills. Our fourth point is personal and civic responsibility. So this entails students that are willing and able to act on their own ideas about what needs to be done to support environmental conservation and preservation. So basically all of these steps deem a successful environmental education program, again, through the guidelines of excellence, which also gives us environmental literacy. So environmental literacy, what does that look like? So this is defined as having the knowledge, skills, and dispositions to solve problems and resolve issues individually and collectively that sustain ecological, economic, and social stability. And that is from the Virginia Department of Education.
So for the planning for environmental education that will help learners to meet relevant national, state, provincial, and even local educational standards, you can actually use this guideline called North American Association for Environmental Education. It actually is used for K-12, and it correlates standards with national standards of, for art, science, civics and government, economics, any subject that we've been actually learning when we were in grade school, and actually help learners to improve their test scores, grade level achievements, improve quantitative and skills, and also increase academic achievement, like reading, math, and science, as I discussed before. And also it helps students focus on the environment and local community, which actually allows them to learn. Once they actually are engaged in learning, they can actually achieve, and they are achieve their subjects, like I mentioned again, and the discipline. The discipline can also improve. And there are actually 6 basic principles for the NAAEE guidelines, which actually would look for in environmental education materials, like fairness and accuracy. It actually describe the environmental problems and issues, knowledge and presented in depth. It means to foster awareness of natural and built environment and understanding the environmental concepts. And the emphasis on skills building, it actually means by building lifelong skills that enable learners to actually address environmental issues. And while you're addressing environmental issue, it also prevent problems from arising. And orientation to action, it promotes civic responsibility, encourage learners to use their knowledge and personal skills and assessments to solve environmental problems. And structural soundness, it rely on structural techniques that create an effective learning environment. And usability is just basically any model that you've been using for students to basically be engaged. Is for a well-designed and can be well-designed and easy to use.
So learner safety, your possibilities are endless for the location and terrain of your setting. It could be somewhere more common, like a museum, zoo, park, farm, garden, and then some of the less common suggestions that I found were garbage dumps and cemeteries, but I guess depending on what you're looking at, that totally works. It could also be an outdoor education center that already has seats, boards, tables in place, or some sort of impromptu location like a park or a clearing in the woods, maybe a beach. If it's going to be somewhere that is really spread out, or you're planning on splitting up, or somebody could just wander off and get lost easily, you might want to designate a central meeting location where you can just go back to and somebody will come find you. A buddy system is also a good idea. And then you can also even have an emergency plan depending on where you are and what you're doing. Wherever you are, you want to prepare for that setting. So you want to look at, is it going to be rocky or grassy or concrete? Is it accessible for everyone? Are you going to be doing a lot of walking? Do you need to wear comfortable shoes? Do you need to maybe bring a blanket to sit on if you're going to be on the beach or on the grass? what is the weather going to be like? You want to dress appropriately. If it's going to be outside and you're in the sun, you might want to wear a hat. Or if you are going somewhere like the mountains or a higher elevation, make sure you bring a jacket with you. If you're going to be walking around a lot, or wherever you're going involves a lot of activity, make sure you bring plenty of water. And then you want to look at, are there going to be any hazards? If you're out in the sun, do you need to bring sunblock? Or are you going somewhere that might have biting insects, like ticks or mosquitoes? Do you maybe want to bring some bug spray? So a lot of things to take into consideration when you're preparing for where you're going to be. And changing the setting to outside the classroom is an effective way to develop students' knowledge and appreciation of the environment, stimulate curiosity, and motivate them to learn. So while there's all these rules, boundaries, behavior, and preparedness to take into consideration, you also really want to invite exploration.
So for diverse settings, besides, using a classroom, we can actually use our natural surroundings to actively engage students in motivating learning activities, such as schoolyard. Schoolyard is actually a really great way to build students' enthusiastic and curiosity of the natural world and core skills and content. You can actually use the schoolyard as an outdoor classroom, so you can also incorporate different subject matters such as, reading, writing, math, civics, history, art, and drama. And there are actually a good amount of available resources if you are curious to get started. The link is right below in the slide. And laboratory is another important tool for learning by observation, experiment, and testing the theory. It can also be used to improve student learning and achievement. So you can actually use laboratories to be carried out in school, gardens, forests, and mountains, or any natural surroundings that you're comfortable teaching your students. Field settings, such as field trips. They actually can be used to like a hands-on interaction. When usually kids, what I found interesting is that kids are more interactive when they're actually using their hands a lot. And when they're actually using their hands or their sight, like basically their five senses, they're basically being able to learn more, and they can actually absorb all that information into their brain. And also zoos, like guided tours. Zoos is a really great environmental education program. They can actually really contribute to an increased nature connectiveness or even strengthen positive environmental attitude towards species conservation. And museums can also really act like a powerful tool to basically solve many problems related to environmental issues per se. And natural history museums are actually made for environmental education, where you are basically seeing more natural resources and biodiversity that explain, specimens. When you actually see those specimens like stuffed animals and reptiles, nests, and fossils and some sort, yet when you're looking at that, you're like I told you before, the intention of feeling and using your five senses really can captivate the students to learning more.
Okay, linking personal experiences with the bigger picture. So roots in the real world is a term that comes from the North American Association of Environmental Education, that Z was also quoting for us. So this means learners develop knowledge and skills through direct experiences that we may have already had previous to learning something in the classroom. So again, it's kind of asking students to relate to an environmentally friendly choice, something, environmental that we've changed or done at home, whether this is, through the community, volunteer work, a kind act, any of the above. So we know that investigating, analysis, problem solving are most effective when relevant and can somehow be related to a learner's personal experiences in their life. So with that, I have an example here just of something that you can think of as a child. My parents were always a little bit strict, so I know that we had a clothesline growing up, and we just one of those things you can do to cut back on energy usage. So relating that to when you're kind of in your older elementary years or even middle school, and kind of learning the importance of being more sustainable, and then also linking that with bills that you're paying at home that are continuing to increase. So let's see here, and then so we like to believe, and research shows that most students, when you relate to something that you are talking about in the classroom, this can spark interest of a topic, and this will enhance students' learning abilities. So with that, so interest drives learning. So just interest itself, what does this mean? So when you're interested in something, this usually helps you think more clearly, makes you want to understand more deeply, and also remember more accurately. So when you're interested in what you are learning, if you experience this in the classroom, it's more likely that you are to pay closer attention, process information more efficiently, and use more effective learning strategies. So strategies may include critical thinking or making connections between old and new information. When we are interested in a topic, we may find that we work harder and longer than we usually would. Relating personal experiences to environmental topics that are being taught in the classroom is important. Interest is a great feeling to have, especially when it comes to learning something new.
So there are a good amount of barriers in outdoor settings. To name a few is basically teachers' lack of confidence in teaching the outdoors, the school schedules and curricular requirements. There have been language barriers so you won't be able to understand when people are speaking a different language, or basically have a really thick accent. You might not understand what they're trying to basically say to you. And also student disability and disorder, this has been a common issue, especially when it comes to this disorder called sensory processing disorder. It actually, some students will not be able to adapt to change, but they're more on a simple routine. They won't be able to change anything, or they won't be able to change as other normal students would actually change their ways of doing things. Also, like the background experience with nature. Like I have a really interesting, background. I wasn't really exposed to nature as much, but eventually I grew out of that when I grew up. Of course, some children may have a different experience. So, teachers may have to find a way how to adapt to that particular person when it comes to that their experience with nature. And learning preference, everyone have different learning preferences, physical and special education needs. Their parents may not be able to have the same schedule as a school, so they may not be able to participate in students engaging to the outdoors, which may have limit students from engaging entirely, because most kids are depending on their parents to show up so that they're actually more engaged. And when it comes to inability for students to adapt change, I already mentioned that before. Resources and support, they usually lack that. And when they don't really have much resource and support, they may not be able to educate the students about the environment. And when it comes to like the harm to the environment, just like what Kristen was saying, like some people may not really be able to know how to, I guess, involve themselves into the environment. Like they might be like walking or digging or basically harming plants and animals, and they may need like some type of correction. And weather, like when it's raining outside, such as Florida, it prevents a good amount of time to being outdoors. And Nature Conserve, like I said, what Kristen was mentioning, she was saying that, they like students or teachers or even learners, they should, be able to provide themselves sunburn or any like insect repellent, so they're aware that they're actually prepared to be in the outdoors. And concern about having dirt on their clothing, it can be a thing, and some people are not really fond of that, so it can actually present barriers to engagement. Now, there are implementation for outdoor settings. There are ways to solve any problems you may have, such as volunteering for an environmental education organization. This way you can actually learn and incorporate those knowledge into your classroom to have the confidence to teach the outdoors to your students. And also, you can identify specific challenges in an individual class or school. You can also have a shared online calendar so that everyone are on the same page. And when it comes to like class management concern, you can address by pre-teaching the behavior to the students. And if you're having a hard time trying to understand a student or any learner that have a language barrier, hire a bilingual speaker. Or and also when it comes to being outdoors, just try to check the local weather channel before you even try to go outdoors, so you can be prepared. And I should say, you can start a fundraising if you have a hard time providing the resources and having support that comes with it. All of this implementation actually is basically used as a system thinking approach, which a system thinking approach is basically an approach that looks at interaction between components of a system to order to better understand outcomes from the system. And system thinking actually has been really widely used as a way to design interventions and improve outcomes in public health and other fields. Like an example for using a system thinking approach is by arranging a schedule of services to create time blocks where all students in class can go outside. And this can actually be used as a socio-ecological model framework.
Okay, so here are our citations, the first page, and then we do have the rest of them continued here. Thanks for listening, everybody.